Have you ever wondered if the biggest secret to enjoying a cruise has nothing to do with buffets, shore excursions, or even the ship itself, but with the cabin you book? Imagine this: you're walking down the grand hallway of a cruise liner, past glittering doors that open to balconies with sweeping ocean views. People paid thousands for those spots, but hidden behind other doors, down the very same corridor, are cabins most travelers avoid, cabins dismissed as claustrophobic shoeboxes. And yet they hold a secret so powerful, it can transform the way you cruise forever. I know, because after more than 30 voyages at sea, I keep choosing them, again and again. Welcome to Cruise Watch. Today we're uncovering the truth about balcony cabins and why the unglamorous interior stateroom, yes, the room most travelers dread, is actually one of the most underrated hacks in cruise travel. And before you shake your head, trust me, the stories I'm about to share will change the way you think about your next vacation. Subscribe to Cruise Watch for more cruise secrets, behind-the-scenes truths, and the real stories cruise lines don't want you to know. So why does this matter? Because when you book a cruise, your cabin is one of the biggest decisions you'll make. Cruise lines spend millions marketing balconies as the dream, private views, romantic mornings, coffee above the sea. But what if I told you that those balconies, more often than not, are a financial trap? What if I told you that the dark, windowless interior cabins you see as last resorts might actually give you more freedom, better rest, and richer experiences for far less money? That's not theory, that's fact, and it's a lesson I learned the hard way. Let's dive in. It all starts with money, because the math never lies. On my last Mediterranean cruise, I stood at the booking page, staring at two numbers. Balcony, $2,300. Interior, $1,400. The difference, $900, didn't just sit on a credit card bill. It became 3 premium excursions. It became an unlimited drinks package. It became a spa massage in Santorini after a long day exploring volcanic hot springs. While some travelers sat on their balconies sipping coffee, I was swimming in a natural thermal pool, surrounded by white cliffs. But here's the real kicker. That wasn't even my best deal. On an Alaskan voyage, I monitored prices for months, using fare alerts. 2 weeks before departure, my interior cabin dropped by $450. One email to my travel agent, and just like that, I had instant onboard credit to spend however I wanted. That's when it hit me. People think paying more buys better vacations, but at sea, it often buys dead space. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. You're not in your cabin as much as you think. You're on deck, at shows, on excursions, eating in restaurants, watching the horizon with hundreds of others. When I tracked it, I discovered that I spent less than 10 waking hours in my room over 7 days. Suddenly, the thousands people throw at balconies made no sense. And then the real revelation came. The money I saved on interiors didn't vanish, it multiplied. Last year, while others took one 7-day cruise with a balcony, I took two entire adventures for the price of one room with a view. The choice became obvious, but savings are just the beginning. Because what nobody tells you is that inside cabins also hold one of the rarest treasures on a cruise ship: silence. I learned this the hard way. On my 5th cruise, I splurged. A panoramic ocean view cabin overlooking the ship's central atrium. It sounded like paradise on paper, activity, life, the buzz of the ship right outside my door, but by midnight, paradise turned into punishment. The atrium became a nightclub, music thumped until 2 in the morning. Footsteps echoed on the glass walkway above. Every laugh, every chair scrape, every beat of bass pulsed through my walls. I barely slept. The next cruise, humbled, I returned to my modest interior on deck 8, tucked between other passenger cabins. And the difference? Abysmal. No windows meant no noise from the outside. No foot traffic outside the door. Just peace. Just darkness. That silence became my secret weapon. With 7 a.m. excursions waiting, I could sleep like a baby rocked by the ocean's rhythm. Now, I'm deliberate. I pick interiors on mid-level decks, sandwiched between other rooms, far from elevators or service areas. It's like choosing the perfect hotel room away from the elevator but supercharged. The irony is delicious. Guests pay more for balconies, only to spend nights awake from wind rattling the railing, waves slapping the hull, or neighbors chatting on their verandas. Meanwhile, I'm in my quiet cocoon, dreaming until the morning sun rises without even knowing it. And that leads to the best-kept secret of all: sleep quality. If you've ever struggled with early mornings, this is where interiors shine. On my first balcony, I imagined waking up to the ocean's beauty. Instead, I woke every morning at 5:45 sharp as sunlight cut through the curtains like a blade. No matter what I did, eye masks, towels draped over the windows, the sun refused to let me sleep. By afternoon, I was dragging myself through the ship in a fog, too tired to fully enjoy what I'd paid for. Back in an interior, everything changed. 8 hours of pure, uninterrupted rest, darkness deeper than a cave. My body finally surrendered to the natural rocking of the ship, and that rest transformed everything. Excursions felt richer. Dinners lasted longer. I wasn't wasting precious time napping or drinking coffee just to stay awake. The beauty of interiors is control. Afternoon nap at 4, your body thinks it's midnight. Party until 2 a.m., sleep in until 10, with no blazing sunlight to rip you from dreams. It's a private sanctuary for your biological clock. No sunrise, no reflections, no distractions, just the rest your body craves. When you think about it, every lost hour of sleep on a vacation you paid thousands for is money slipping overboard. Interiors protect you from that without lifting a finger. Of course, many assume interiors must feel like cramped closets. But here's where cruise design proves everyone wrong. The first time I walked into an inside stateroom, I braced myself for claustrophobia. I imagined bumping into walls just to get dressed, suitcases stacked in the corner, a bathroom barely large enough to turn around in. But what I found shocked me. Cruise lines have perfected the art of space. Closets stretch to the ceiling, beds lift to swallow full-size suitcases. Tiny shelves appear in corners where you least expect them. On one ship, I found a small ledge next to the bathroom mirror, perfectly placed for a toothbrush and skincare. It's like stepping into a tiny house designed by an engineer obsessed with efficiency. I tested it. On one 7-day trip, I measured my cabin usage. Between breakfast, activities, shows, and dinners, I spent less than 10 hours inside. 10 hours across a week. Was it really worth double the cost for a few extra square meters I'd barely notice? The answer was clear. Modern interiors come with queen-sized beds, smart lighting, even small sofas in some layouts. They aren't floating closets. They're space engineering masterpieces disguised as budget rooms. And once you see how clever the design is, you stop craving the extra wasted space balconies give you. But here's where the story takes a surprising turn. Because the value of interiors isn't just in money, silence, sleep, or design. It's in freedom. On a Caribbean cruise, I scored an upgrade to a suite. It felt like winning the lottery, until I realized what I'd really won was guilt. Every decision revolved around using that balcony, that oversized bathroom, that private lounge access. We skipped shows just to sit on the veranda. We ordered room service instead of exploring the buffet. The suite stopped being a luxury and became a prison of invisible chains. In contrast, an interior cabin comes with no such pressure. You don't feel obligated to use the space you paid for. You're free to roam, free to experience every corner of the ship without second-guessing whether you're getting your money's worth. That freedom is intoxicating. You eat breakfast on deck, read in the quiet lounge, watch the sunset with new friends at the bow, all without guilt tugging you back to your cabin. And that's when you realize the best moments on a cruise almost never happen in your room, no matter how luxurious it is. But just when you think you've mastered the formula, saving money, enjoying silence, maximizing sleep, and freeing yourself from guilt, cruise lines reveal yet another twist in the tale. The world of cabins is not static. It's evolving, quietly, strategically. And at the very center of this evolution are the humble interior cabins. For years, interiors had the worst reputation on board. They were the cabins people booked reluctantly, the last option when the budget was tight, or when availability was slim. Travel forums called them shoeboxes, caves, even punishment rooms. But something fascinating has happened in recent years. Cruise lines, faced with passengers who want more for less, have turned interiors into laboratories of innovation. These small windowless rooms have become the testing grounds for new design ideas, clever layouts, and technologies that reimagine what a cabin can be. And make no mistake, this is not just about saving a few square feet, it's about psychology. The first time I witnessed this transformation was aboard a Royal Caribbean Quantum-class ship. I had booked an interior cabin out of habit, expecting the usual 4 walls, a bed, some storage, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. But when I opened the door, I froze. There, dominating one entire wall, was a curved screen, glowing with color. And on that screen, waves rolled in real time, sunlight glinted off the water, and gulls soared past as though I were standing on a balcony. At first I didn't believe it. I thought it was a looped video, some pretty screensaver. But as I watched, the scene shifted with every roll of the ship. When we sailed past the coastline, I saw cliffs rise in the distance. When the sun began to set, the sky blazed orange and purple across the screen. It was not imagination, it was reality, streamed live from cameras mounted outside the ship. The effect was startling. My windowless cabin suddenly felt alive, connected, expansive. The claustrophobia I had braced myself for evaporated. I found myself staring at that screen more than I ever expected. It wasn't a balcony, of course. I couldn't step outside, couldn't feel the wind or smell the salt air. But my brain didn't care. For the first time in decades, interior cabins were no longer confined to 4 walls. They were doorways to illusion. That's the genius of what Royal Caribbean calls its virtual balcony. It's not just a gimmick, it's a psychological sleight of hand. And once you experience it, you realize how much of cruising is about perception. Norwegian Cruise Line has taken the idea even further with their virtual windows. Instead of a giant screen, these appear as small framed windows glowing with simulated daylight. But the real trick isn't the image, it's the timing. At sunrise, the window glows brighter, gently easing your body into the rhythm of the day.
At night, it fades to darkness, signaling rest. For solo travelers, for those prone to claustrophobia, for anyone who struggles with jet lag, these cabins feel like magic. I tested one of these on Harmony of the Seas. At first, I treated it like a novelty. I'd wake up, roll over and smile at the virtual sunrise painting my window. But over the course of the cruise, it became something I relied on. I checked it before dressing for excursions, gauging the weather without leaving the bed. I used it as a timer for naps, shutting it off when I needed complete darkness. It wasn't just decoration, it was control, and that was the revelation. Real balconies force you to live by the rules of nature. If the sun rises at 5:30, you rise too, whether you want to or not. If the wind howls, if rain lashes against the glass, you feel it. But virtual balconies hand you the power. You decide when to let in the view, when to shut it off. You decide when it's day, when it's night. In a strange way, it's more freedom than a balcony has ever given me. And this is only the beginning. Whispered among cruise insiders are plans for cabins with customizable digital walls. Imagine choosing your view. Today, a live ocean feed. Tomorrow, a starlit sky. The next day, a coral reef teeming with fish. The idea isn't far-fetched. After all, this is the industry that brought us robot bartenders, roller coasters at sea, and planetariums in the middle of the ocean. If they can simulate surfing on deck, why not simulate scenery in a cabin? What fascinates me most is that cruise lines are experimenting with these innovations in interiors first, not balconies. Why? Because interiors are plentiful, they're affordable, and they've long been seen as the weakest link. Improving them changes the game for thousands of passengers every sailing. And for travelers like me, who know the secret value of interiors, it feels like an upgrade without the price tag.
But let me step back for a moment. Because while these innovations are thrilling, while they promise a future where even the humblest cabin feels luxurious, there's one truth I cannot gloss over. Sometimes a balcony is not just worth it, it's essential. And I learned that truth not from brochures or forums, but from standing on a crowded deck in Iceland, craning my neck as the sea taught me a lesson I'll never forget. I learned that lesson in Iceland. True to form, I had booked my trusted interior cabin. Dark, quiet, reliable. It had never failed me before. But one morning, as we sailed through a fjord, I made my way up to the open deck. The air was crisp, almost electric. The cliffs towered on either side of us, their rocky faces streaked with silver waterfalls that shimmered in the pale sunlight. It felt like sailing into a cathedral carved by time itself. Dozens of passengers were already gathered at the railing, cameras clutched tightly, shoulders pressed together as they craned for the perfect view. I squeezed in, angling for space, fighting for a glimpse of the majesty around me. And then I saw them, the passengers who had paid more. They weren't jostling, they weren't craning, they weren't worried about being elbowed aside, they were standing silently on their balconies. Wrapped in thick sweaters, mugs of steaming coffee in hand, blankets draped over their shoulders, they looked like they belonged there, like the fjord was theirs alone. No rush, no crowd, just serenity. And then the sea itself delivered the knockout punch. With a burst of spray, a whale breached, its massive body arced through the air, its tail slicing the sky, before crashing back into the water with a thunderous roar. Gasps erupted around me, shutters clicked furiously, voices shouted in excitement, but the balcony passengers, they didn't move. They didn't scramble. They simply stood there, front row witnesses to one of nature's greatest spectacles. In that moment, I understood. There are certain itineraries where a balcony isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. Alaska, where glaciers groan and collapse into the sea like ancient walls breaking apart. Norway, where fjords stretch into infinity, glowing under the midnight sun. Antarctica, where ghostly blue icebergs drift like giants in the mist. On these journeys, the landscape isn't just background, it's the story itself. And a balcony gives you a private stage to witness that story unfold. For couples, the balcony can also be more than a window. It can be sanctuary. I've spoken to honeymooners who describe sipping wine under the stars, the hush of the sea wrapping around them like a blessing. For them, the balcony wasn't about cost or math. It was about intimacy. It was about creating memories that no public deck, no crowded lounge could ever replicate. I remember one couple telling me that their favorite moment wasn't a port, wasn't a show, wasn't even a meal. It was a single morning where they sat together on their balcony, the ocean endless before them, saying nothing, needing nothing. So yes, sometimes the balcony is priceless. But here's where reality intrudes. Because while balconies can create magic, the harsh truth is this: most people don't actually use them as much as they imagine. I once sat down with a calculator during a Western Caribbean itinerary. The upgrade to a balcony was almost $900 more than the interior I had booked. Over 7 days, between excursions, meals, activities, and sleep, I estimated I would realistically spend 12 waking hours on that balcony. 12 hours. Do the math. That's $75 per hour to sit in a chair. $75 for a sunrise I could just as easily watch from the open deck. $75 for a sunset I could enjoy with friends at the bow of the ship. $75 for air and views that are in truth free for anyone willing to step outside. And that's the shocking climax few passengers ever calculate. Cruise lines don't want you to. They sell balconies as romance, as sophistication, as status. They market them as the true mark of a real cruiser. They show you photos of couples clinking champagne glasses against the horizon, of families watching dolphins leap below, but they never frame it in terms of cost per hour. They let your imagination fill in the blanks, and imagination is generous. You imagine yourself spending hours out there. Reality has you running from breakfast to excursion, from trivia games to theater shows, from pool decks to restaurants. Reality leaves your balcony empty most of the day, and what they really don't tell you are the downsides. Balconies can be unbearably hot under the midday sun, turning into ovens by 2 in the afternoon. Salt spray leaves your furniture sticky, a fine crust forming on the railing and chairs. Privacy, forget it. Neighbors smoke on their balconies, and the wind carries it straight across. Conversations drift easily through thin partitions. I once overheard a full argument next door while trying to enjoy a quiet drink outside. Let me tell you, nothing kills the magic of the sea faster than someone else's fight echoing through the walls. That's when I realized, the balcony dream is often more beautiful in your head than in reality. And that's why, voyage after voyage, I return to interiors. Because while balconies occasionally deliver breathtaking moments, interiors consistently deliver what I actually need. They give me deeper sleep, unbroken by sunlight. They give me silence, unbroken by wind or waves. They give me savings that transform into shore excursions, spa treatments, drink packages, or even extra cruises. They free me from guilt, from that invisible chain whispering, you should be out on your balcony right now, making it worth the price. But above all, they give me perspective. Because when I look back at my cruises, what do I remember? Do I remember how comfortable my balcony chair was? No. I remember standing under the northern lights in Norway, my breath catching as the sky rippled green above me. I remember swimming in Santorini's hot springs, steam curling around volcanic rocks. I remember walking through Lisbon's cobblestone streets, the smell of roasted chestnuts lingering in the air. I remember laughing with strangers during a late-night karaoke contest on Carnival, people who became friends by the end of the week.
Those are the moments that matter. Those are the treasures I take home. The cabin, whether balcony or interior, was just the place I slept between adventures. And that's the truth. Cruise lines don't want you to see. They want you to believe your cabin is the vacation. But it's not. The vacation is out there on the decks, in the ports, in the laughter, in the risks you take, in the people you meet. And yes, sometimes you'll crave a balcony. Sometimes you'll want that private sunrise, that intimate glass of wine at night. If that's your truth, embrace it. But be honest with yourself. Do the math, ask the questions no one asks. How many hours will you really sit out there? Is it worth $75 an hour? Or is your money better spent on adventures, on memories, on another cruise entirely? Because in the end, the balcony is just a view. The interior is a choice to travel smarter, sleep deeper, and live freer. And that's why, voyage after voyage, I walk past the glittering balcony doors, past the glossy dreams cruise lines sell, and slide my keycard into the most unassuming door on the deck, the door to my interior cabin. I step inside, close the door, and smile, not because I settled, but because I know the secret. The secret that the cabin is never the destination, the sea is. Thank you for watching Cruise Watch. If this opened your eyes, subscribe for more cruise secrets, powerful tips, and behind-the-scenes truths every single week. Because the ocean is full of mysteries, and here we uncover them, one voyage at a time.